Hello, my name is Kirioth, and today we're going to have a little chat because I have sold the Dreadmob. It is gone. I was going to talk about this at some point earlier in this because actually it went maybe a month or two ago. I forget. Time is a weird soup. It's just, it's very hard to keep track of everything. So, yeah, once where the Dreadmob sat, these two shelves up here, that was bad. Apparently if I point up this way, it's as though I pointed directly to God and he has decided to illuminate and indeed overexpose the shot. So yeah, these two shelves here, that is where the Dreadmob used to live, but it is gone. It is out, it has left the building. It's someone else's collection now, and it was kind of sucked to sell them, I'm not going to lie. I know full well that there were those of you who were critical of the Dreadmob, especially, well, mainly the paint job, and you know what? I kind of stand with you on that. The Dreadmob was not intended to be as big as it was. It was not intended to be a project that was as extensive as it was. The entire idea behind it to start with was just to make some daft Redemptors. That was the entire thing. I was like, I'm going to make 6 silly Redemptors. There we go. And then it just expanded out. Almost, not exponentially, but it just got more and more daft and bigger, and more variants started to add up, and I started getting a bit more adventurous with the conversions and the kit bashes, and it ended up being 4,000 points strong, where previously it was just a bit of a meme. It's just a bit of a joke. It wasn't something that I fully intended to make into a full, well, I was going to say a full force. Sitting there and coming up with new ways to make Dreadnoughts look mad was one of the most fun projects that I've ever done. It was really, really kind of not just interesting, but there was no point of it where I got bored of making new Dreadnoughts. At no point did I sit there and go, well, I guess I've already assembled 7 of these. I don't really think I want to do another one. I always wanted to do another one. I always wanted to add something to something else. I mean, by the time I got towards the silly end of having, I would suggest, a few too many, given that there are other armies out there and there were other projects that I wanted to do and other ideas that I had written up kind of basically having one of every type. And when I say one of every type, I mean an Iron Hands Contemptor and a Blood Angels Contemptor and a Wordbearers Contemptor, and having a Marigal Tainted Dreadnought in there. Kind of one of everything sort of idea for this force, which is ludicrous and stupid, and really it's probably a good job that it never actually happened, but it was close to happening. I got a lot out of it. I genuinely got a lot out of that army, especially when it came to the kit bashing and converting side of things, because that was a force that actually genuinely taught me a bit of patience. There are a few ideas I had for Dreadnoughts, for that particular force, that frankly were an absolute pain to actually do anything with. It just was not easy. It was not easy, and at times, kind of frustrating, but it did a very good job of persuading me to push through, and to identify whether I felt something wasn't worth it because it didn't work as a core concept, or because I was just struggling to make it work. Something that actually came in super handy when it comes to doing the Chaos Knights back there, and the Soulblight Gravelords up there as well. The Dreadmob actually set me up really well for both of those armies, because there were multiple models in both where it was a case of sitting there and going, I know I could probably make this work. It's really difficult right now. It's a real pain. The Vulcan Mega Bolter on that Chaos Knight was the most, it took so much work to make that work. It took so much effort to actually make it work. Make it stand up, make it balance, make it so you could take the gun off and put it back on and still be stable when you moved it around the table. A whole load of stuff went into that. And that knight wouldn't have even existed to begin with if it wasn't for the Dreadmob, because the Dreadmob had a Redemptor holding an Avenger Gatling Cannon, and it had just a regular old Venerable Dreadnought holding an Onslaught Gatling Cannon. And if those two hadn't been a thing, the knight wouldn't have been a thing. And doing those two gave me a really good idea as to how to support stuff like that, how to make it work, how to push through the point where you're looking at it and going, this is super tricky, and I can't tell if it's super tricky because the conversion or kit bash idea itself is flawed and just is not going to be it's not possible to execute it, or whether it's just a pain, and I need to push through and make it happen. Quite a few of those dreadnoughts, it was a case of having to push through and make it happen. Having to just ignore the fact that it was getting a bit stressful and a bit irritating, and just look at the end goal and not the bit where you're at now. To be honest, I've always been someone who, I don't give up easy. It's not like I sit there and go, oh, well, I tried once and it didn't work, so I'm just going to sack it off. But there are definite moments, depending on mood, where it's easy to look at something and go, that doesn't feel like it's going to work now, therefore it never will. There are a few points during the building of a couple of the dreadnoughts that I had moments like that and quickly identified, no, it's just now. You need to walk away, come back. You'll have an idea as to how to get through this particular build and how to work out how to make it. You'll have that. You just need the space. Having that space is super helpful. It's something that resulted in half the conversions of my Soulblight Gravelords from actually working. Which, by the way, I filmed quite a lot of building that army. We are going to start going into that next week. We're going to actually go through the building of it and the painting of it and stuff like that. But I discovered that I'm bad at filming kit bashing. I kind of wanted to do it when I was doing the Dreadmob, and I never got round to it. And then when I actually sat down to do it, I realised that the Dreadmob was super helpful in making me kind of identify what I find fun and enjoyable about kit bashing, but it also encouraged me to do something that is super unhelpful when it comes to filming it, because I would frequently try something, it wouldn't work, I would sit there and go, okay, is it because the kit bash is a bad idea, or is it because I'm not executing it properly and I need to go away and just come back when come back when things are a bit more settled and see what happens. And I found that doing that, 9 times out of 10, fixed the issue. Whatever idea I had, whatever plan I had for doing something, did work if I took that space. Unfortunately, when you do that, and you're filming the process, what happens is you film the fumbling around for about an hour and a half, then you stop filming, then you go away, or you work on something else, or you paint something, or you write something up, and then you go back to it, and you look at it, and you go, okay, now, what was I going to... That's how to do it, and then it gets done instantly. Found that with the Dreadmob a lot, which was super helpful because it also worked really well with doing the Chaos Knights, also the Armoured Company, and the ridiculous Realm of Metal Gargants that I've got as well, and it works super well for the Soulblight. Makes filming it very difficult, because frequently, forget to turn the camera back on, and instead, it's done. It's like, okay, I've got it now. And then you look at it and go, wow, that only took 5 minutes. Oh, and I recorded none of it. Brilliant. Both pluses and negatives there. I guess as I was kind of packaging it up though, it just kind of struck me as being a bit weird that a lot of the things that I enjoy about the hobby, the kit bashing and converting side of things, I don't think I was actually that great at before I did that project. I think doing that project did a lot to just reinforce certain good habits and also completely remove some really bad ones as well. Now, the one thing that I know probably should have been done better is the painting of that army. And in fact, I did have plans to repaint it. I did a couple of test schemes and a couple of test models, and I really enjoyed doing that process and finding something that I felt would work. Unfortunately, that army started at a time where I hated painting, and the only reason I did it was to make sure that I wasn't showing up with grey plastic on the tabletop. Instead, it was, well, I've got to do this bit now, so I suppose I ought to. Which is not the play. It's not the way to go. I say that now because I actually really enjoy painting now, and I think I've got better at it overall. No, I'm gonna skip the self-deprecation when it comes to the painting, all right? Because I used to be terrible at painting. I'm not saying I'm great now, but I don't think... I think it's even not fair to me for me to say that I haven't improved, because I know I have. I'm not going to be winning any golden demons anytime soon. But the fact is that the stuff I make now, I am infinitely happier with than anything I used to paint. And that, unfortunately, the Dreadmob is included in that. I got close to repainting the whole thing. I got close to stripping it down and repainting it, but there were other things that I needed to do. Other projects that I needed to paint, other things that I needed to build. And so it always got pushed off as being, okay, when this is done. And unfortunately, as we all know, it's never done, is it? It's never done. There's always something else. There's always something new, something different, some expansion, some change to what you're doing that means stuff like that never quite gets done. Or at least that's how it is for me. You might find yourself being more, I don't know, exhibiting more self-control, perhaps, but that's kind of how it went for me. I am going to genuinely miss that army because it was a huge amount of fun to build. It was a lot of fun to convert. It was a lot of fun to kit bash. And whilst it never quite got the paint job it deserved, it's left me with some really good habits and some really good approaches to doing other kit bashes and conversions. It's also kind of very much responsible for the idea that, I don't know, the idea that I can get away with just making stuff. I think for a long time I kind of had this idea of, well, you can't build it unless there's a purpose. You can't build it unless it's usable, unless you can actually field it or do something with it. That Dreadmob kind of convinced me that you don't really need to think like that. You don't always need to think like that. And you can do builds that are maybe not that flexible, maybe not that smart in terms of what you're actually doing, but you can do something that is fun to make and fun to play whether you win or not. I mean, that's the idea behind my Chaos Knights. My Chaos Knights, you can't swap the weapons. They have the weapons they have because that's what they are. That's what that knight is. It's that knight with that loadout, and that's how that works. Same thing with the Lord of Skulls. I mean, I could easily just take another knight instead of ramming a Lord of Skulls into my list, but the Lord of Skulls is a thematic narrative choice. It's part of the background of the knight household, and so it's in there. I don't know if I'd have necessarily done it to that extent if it wasn't for the Dreadmob. Same thing with the Iconoclast Armoured Company. The fact that I've got, haunted Imperial Guard tanks used by the Inquisition to hunt down witches and psykers. That is an army that, again, most of the tanks are probably going to be heavily locked into what they can actually do. I'll probably end up with quite a lot of them because I love making them. But again, it's something that the Dreadmob kind of convinced me was fine. And I know you're going to be sitting there, especially if you're a competitive player, and going, yeah, but that's not fine. But in some contexts, I think it is. I think in some projects and some armies, you don't necessarily need to look at how best to magnetize and swap out, and you can just do it for the sheer hell of it. Just do it for the fun of it, which is kind of how I've approached every list since, and will most likely continue to do from this point on, because it's just more fun that way. For me, anyway. Although I will admit, some concession was made with my Soulblight Gravelords list, which we will talk about next week. Anyway, yeah, the Dreadmob is gone, but I really enjoyed building it. I really enjoyed that project. I really liked making that army. It was a lot of fun to play on the tabletop. I have nothing but fond memories for it, and I think probably whilst I wouldn't do it again, a lot of the stuff that I got from it has served me pretty damn well with other stuff that I've worked on. Have you ever had an army that you've put a load of work into, sold on, and then realised that actually it set you up for other projects, it set you up for other work? Is there anything that you've wanted to do with a force but never got round to before you had to get rid of it? Let me know in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things, Patreon, video, subscribe, all that stuff. Click it if you like, don't click if you don't want to. And as always, there's an affiliate link in the description for Element Games, which you can use to support the channel if you would like. I leave it in your capable hands. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.